Hello everyone, my name is Tara Scarberry and today I will be discussing the recent issue of the proposed budget for the fiscal year of 2018 and how this proposed budget cut influenced the Department of the Interior to prospectively raise the entrance fees to 17 of the nation's national parks. So, what's the issue? Well, in recent discussions of the national park entrance fees, a highly controversial issue has been whether the drastic increase of rates is essential to the funding for improvement of the park, or if the funds should be acquired elsewhere. And although the main issue is whether the government or the park visitors should pay for the deferred maintenance backlog, this argument brings up other issues as well, such as how will the fee increase affect park attendance? What happens to the money? Does this go against what the park was founded on? And for some people, why should I care? On one hand, many people, such as GOP lawmakers and those who don't regularly attend parks, believe the improvement of the park is the responsibility of those who do attend it. From this perspective, the people who visit the park should be required to pay inflated fees in order to tend to the park's needs, even if they are a one-time visitor, instead of the park receiving funding from the Department of the Interior via taxes or other nationwide governmental income. Those with this belief fall under the category of those four, along with Jeremy Barnum, who believes that raising gate fees during the park's 5 busiest months balances the need to generate revenue for the needed improvements while still providing value to visitors. On the other hand, however, conservationists and park attendees believe that an increase of the gate fees will turn away visitors, and that the responsibility of funding the improvement of the parks should be that of the governments. In the words of Teresa Pierno, chief of the National Parks Conservation Association and one of this view's main proponents, if the Trump administration wants to support national parks, it needs to walk the walk and work with Congress to address the maintenance backlog. Pierno also notes the 12% cut, about $1.5 billion, to Parks Service budget proposed by the Trump administration, while stating that the mounting bill for deferred maintenance should not be shouldered by visitors alone. In sum, then, the issue is whether the attendants of the park should pay increased rates of entry to fund park maintenance, or if the government should take the responsibility of maintaining and improving the nation's parks for their own. And although I agree with conservationists up to a point, I cannot accept the overriding assumption that either side should fully pay for the park's maintenance backlog and other improvements. I believe that there is a middle ground to be found that doesn't involve such a high entrance fee increase, but also doesn't put as much pressure on the Department of the Interior and the U.S. taxpayers. If entrance fees are raised, it is highly likely that the members of the public will turn away from the parks altogether, which in turn would create less revenue for the parks than before the increase. In fact, in one Forest Service study, 49% of visitors earning less than $30,000 a year responded to a $5 increase by reducing their public land use or going elsewhere. So if the fee was $50 instead of $5, it is highly likely that the percentage of visitors who avoid the parks will increase as well. So let's take a more in-depth view into what these increases would do within the parks. First, let's look at Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. In accordance to this proposal, the park-specific annual pass fee for Rocky Mountain National Park would raise from $60 to $75 at any point in the year. However, during the most active months, all other gate fees would be raised as well. So, from June 1st to October 31st, vehicle fees increase from $30 to $70. Individual person fees double in price from $15 to $30, and motorcycle fees are also doubled from $25 to $50. This table was taken from the National Park Service website, and it shows all 17 of the parks affected by the fee increase. The yellow highlighted squares are the proposed regular season increases, and the peak season increases are in the green boxes. The park-specific passes have all been raised to $75, which for places like Rocky Mountain and Yellowstone are only a $15 increase, but for Denali and Joshua Tree, it is a $35 increase, and for Bryce Canyon, it's a $45 increase. And although the regular season vehicle price is the same, it is raised to $70 during the peak season, a $45 increase in some cases, for one family for one day. The Department of the Interior claims that implementing the seasonal pricing structure would likely increase the total entrance fee revenues from $199.9 million to $268.5 million annually, an increase of 34.3% over fiscal year 2016. However, they fail to take into account how many people would be unable to pay the increase, thus not contribute at all to the revenue. If able, the money from the park entrance fees would be used to solve the current maintenance backlog, with 80% of the money staying where it was collected and 20% being transferred to other lands under the Department of the Interior. The Trump administration's goal is to eliminate funding for unnecessary or duplicative programs within the Department of the Interior and reduce funds for lower priority activities such as acquiring new lands. However, in the process, the funds for maintaining the current lands is also lost. With this budget, it would be impossible to improve the current national parks, as well as solve the issue of deferred maintenance. Does this increase go against the public aspect of public parks? The answer is yes, of course it does. The bare essence of the national parks can be found in the creation of one of the first official national parks, Yellowstone. The Yellowstone Act specifies that the lands that are now the park were withdrawn from settlement, occupancy, or sale, and dedicated and set apart as a public park or pleasuring ground for the benefit and enjoyment of the people. The Yellowstone Act provided a starting point in the creation of all the national parks to come, and it introduced the essence of public lands. A public park is a pleasuring ground for the benefit and enjoyment of the people. Therefore, it is a resource in which everyone is welcome to and that no one can be discriminated from. Because of this, the gate fee increase changes the very being of the public parks, as it causes them to function more as private commercialized lands. This in turn would mean that the national parks would no longer fit the definition of a national park as defined by the Yellowstone Act, as it would begin to discriminate against those of lesser income. In order for the parks to remain public in the eyes of the people, there should be no gate fee at all. However, if there is, it should be cheap enough to not discriminate between upper and lower classes separated by pay grades. In fact, Merriam-Webster defines national park as an area of special scenic, historical, or scientific importance set aside and maintained by a national government and in the U.S. by an act of Congress. Therefore, if the people are forced to pay for the improvement of the parks themselves, the parks would no longer fit the definition, as they would no longer be maintained by a national government. This is why people believe that the government should pay for funding, as if they do not, the improvements that the park needs in order to stay operable would not be possible without discriminating against the majority of the American population, closing off public lands from most of the public, and changing the essence of the national parks. So, although the public payment of increased entrance fees may seem of concern to only a small group of conservationists, it should in fact concern anyone who cares about the continuation of the public lands. If the people are forced to pay for the park maintenance through increased entrance fees, the public parks could slowly become less public, attendance rates would decrease, and the budget of the Department of the Interior would slowly diminish. So, unless the Park Service wants to exclude majority of the American population from what should be lands that belong to the people, they will continue to pay for the maintenance backlog with their own money and save the people from the inflated entrance fees proposed in the most recent budget and any budgets to come. There is, however, the option of a compromise. It is possible for the government to continue to fund and maintain national parks, as it is their responsibility to protect the public lands, but they could still bring in revenue from a small gate fee in order to help their income level. This would benefit taxpayers, as they will pay significantly less than they do currently for the parks, because the entrance fees would help to pay the deferred park maintenance in their place. This would also benefit the park attendees, as even those of lower income would be able to enjoy the park. However, in order for this to happen, there needs to be no increase in the park entrance fees, but a redistribution of the fees already at hand. The proposed fee increase would most likely cause more harm than good when in regards to park attendance, so it would be much wiser for the Department of the Interior to redirect some of the funds they already have to pay for the $12 billion in deferred maintenance and backlog improvement projects. Thank you.